My presentation is on epidemics and the expansion of state power from the Venetian quarantines to COVID-19. I chose this topic because I was interested in how epidemics have shaped our public health policies and political structures throughout history, which in turn have raised important ethical and political debates. And the main question I wanted to try to answer throughout my paper was if public health measures are mainly driven by health concerns or by a broader agenda of state control. So the term quarantine from the Italian term quarantina means 40, and it was adopted as an obligatory means of separating persons, animals, and goods that may have been exposed to a contagious disease. Since the 14th century, quarantines have included isolation, sanitary cordons, bills of health issued to ships, fumigation, disinfection, and regulation of groups of persons who are believed to be responsible for spreading the infection. Organized institutional responses to disease control began during the plague epidemic of 1347 to 1352. The disease initially spread by sailors, rats, and cargo arriving in Sicily from the eastern Mediterranean, decimated populations across Europe. These recurring outbreaks of the plague, extending over 4 centuries, stimulated deliberate defensive measures which were socially formative and profoundly controversial at the time. These measures have shaped the concepts and practices of public health ever since. By the 19th century, another even more frightening epidemic, chloria, was approaching. Chloria emerged during a period of increasing globalization caused by technological changes in transportation, a drastic decrease in travel time by steamships and railways, and a rise in trade. While there was an ongoing progress regarding the cause and transmission of chloria, there was no effective medical response. During the first wave of chloria outbreaks, the strategies adopted by health officials were essentially those that had been used against the plague. In cities, authorities adopted social interventions and traditional health tools. For example, travelers who had contact with infected persons or came from a place where chloria was present were quarantined, and sick persons were forced into plague hospitals. In general, local authorities tried to keep marginalized members of the population away from the cities. In 1836, in Naples, Italy, health officials hindered the free movement of prostitutes and beggars, who were considered carriers of contagion and thus a danger to the healthy urban population. This response involved powers of intervention unknown during normal times, and the actions generated widespread fear and resentment. In some countries, the suspension of personal liberty provided the opportunity, using special laws to stop political opposition. However, the cultural and social context differed from that in previous centuries. For example, in the Italian states, in which revolutionary groups had taken the cause of unification and republicanism, chloria epidemics provided a justification, i.e., the enforcement of sanitary measures, for increasing their police power. A new chapter in the history of quarantine opened in the early 21st century as traditional intervention measures were resurrected in response to global crisis brought on by the emergence of SARS, an especially challenging threat to public health worldwide. SARS, which originated in Guangdong Province, China in 2003, spread along air travel routes and quickly became a global threat because of its rapid transmission and high mortality rate. There were varied responses to this disease as China imposed strict lockdowns and even installed web cameras in private homes. Canada, on the other hand, relied on voluntary quarantines. With the COVID-19 pandemic, there were accelerated advancements in surveillance and the adoption of new technologies that previous epidemics had not seen, specifically digital tracking through mobile apps. Governments across the world were able to implement real-time monitoring of citizens' movements, using the data they gathered to enforce quarantine and identify potential contacts to the disease. In contrast, past epidemics relied only on physical containment measures rather than technological measures. This shift demonstrates how modern epidemics have provided states not only with the opportunity to exert physical control, but also to expand digital surveillance mechanisms beyond epidemic control. As governments adopted these measures, concerns about civil liberties intensified. In the US, concerns around freedom of expression began to take place during the pandemic. One issue was the increase on social media of misinformation and conspiracy theories about COVID-19. The spread of misinformation led to public pushback against vaccination laws as political divisions increased, and trust in science and health professionals plummeted. In the face of new challenges posed in the 21st century by the increasing risk for the emergence and rapid spread of infectious disease, quarantine and other public health tools remain central to public health preparedness. But these measures require great attention to avoid causing bias and discrimination. Public trust must be gained through regular, transparent, and comprehensive communications that balance the risks and benefits of public health interventions. Successful responses to public health emergencies must learn from the valuable lessons of the past. And then these are all my references used for this presentation specifically. And yeah.